Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you're looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 25 of The World Witches. Duchess is a muscular Duchess is a muscular woman with a kind smile and mischievous gray eyes. The whole time she looks over my damaged armor, she talks with Herbert in a way that makes me think they are together, but then she looks at me. So, she says, grinning as she stretches the word. How are you going to pay me for the work? She looks me up and down, licks her lips hungrily, and I step back, cheeks burning. Duchess, Herbert says in annoyance. She laughs. Look at him blush. Sasha was right. You might have a virgin on your hands. Can we not talk about if I have or haven't done it? I ask, then swallow. Relax. I'm not going to eat you, she grins, unless you're into that. Is everyone out here obsessed with sex? I'll cover. I can pay. I cut off Herbert. With money, I mean. I add at her grin. And my cheeks burn again. I mean, she is good looking, and she has to be at least twice my age. I'm not saying I'm not staying with the caravan. So, money's good, she says. Are you sure? Herbert asked. The adventurer's life isn't cheap, and unlike what the stories say, money doesn't just show up around every tree. I received some as part of this. I look for a way to explain it that won't involve lying, and I can't think of one. Then I'll give you the friends and family discount, Duchess says. We aren't family, I point out, but we're friends. We just met. You do know this it's an expression, right? Oh, okay. How much? Adding on top of that, you got her defending the caravan. I wasn't. Let her excuse the low price however she wants, Herbert says. You have to learn to take people's gratitude. It's going to be rare enough in Toronto. I'm not sure where the reticence is from. I mean, she is clearly nice, if too forward for my liking. She reminds me a little of Rich and Daz in that way, although not as slimy. Let's make it a double treen and I'll be happy with that. I look at Herbert. Ouch! She exclaims, hand to her ample breast, and I thought you trusted me. It's a good deal, Herbert says with a chuckle, but if you have the money, you're going to want to get yourself an enchanted repair kit until your skill's good enough. I hand her the money. I'll have it for you in the morning, she says, standing and turning to her wagon. She pauses. You know, I'm going to be done with it at some point tonight, if you're interested in waiting for it here. I'll be back in the morning, I hurry to say as the smile she gives me leaves no doubt what she wants to do while I'm here. Bye. I head towards the cooking fire I see in the distance by our cart. I don't know if someone made the clearing or if it's something the system put in place along the road, but there's enough flat ground without trees there here. All the carts and wagon can get off the road for the night. They're arranged in arcs between the fires and the forest, making impromptu defensive walls. You into guys or girls? Herbert asked, falling into step with me, and my ears burn. Sorry, I don't mean normally pry, but the way you reacted there and I kind of thought you were like looking at Josie. It's not that, I blurt out. I mean, it's not just something, it's just not something I've ever talked about. Not even with your father? My dad tends to make his mind up about stuff, and it doesn't matter what we tell him. So that wasn't a subject I wanted to talk about with him. Friends, Josie? System, no. What would she think of me if she knew the dreams I've had? Herbert chuckles. Well, I'm a stranger you'll probably never see again once we reach Toronto. Who can report everything I tell him to Josie? On the system, I promise that whatever you tell me will stay between us. What about you? I ask defiantly. Guys or girls? Women, he replies without hesitation and grins as my cheeks burn. I didn't think he'd answer. I don't know, I finally say. if it's one or the other. I really like Josie, and Duchess is good looking. It's just the way she was so. I see Rich. Rich's slimy smile, Daz's lewd licking of the lips, predatory. So you want to be the one going after the girl? No, I don't know. I mean, I never did anything like that. I just looked, I guess. Guys too. I hesitated. Wanted to with a guy, but he turned out to be an asshole. Okay. Then something you need to know about the caravans. The people come and go here. Chuck's a bit of an exception in that he has fixed routes, so there's a core of people who stay, like me and my team. Duchess has been here for a while, along with maybe half the wagons, but the rest they're like you, traveling with us because it's safer than doing it alone. What I'm getting to is that if you want to try something, this is a good place to do it. Everyone's looking for variety. The regulars always see the same people, so we look for the new arrivals as a way to change things up. We don't expect attachment or anything serious. I nod and try to figure out how I feel about learning that. What if I think it should be serious? You mean that sex is just between you and whoever you marry? Maybe. Then are you sure you want to be on the road? This isn't a lifestyle that leads itself to making committed relationships. I'm sure I don't want to, I reply, then realize I'm not as certain as I sound. I do want to go back to court after this, right? I look at the trees and things I can't make out darting in the growing shadows. There's danger in there, out here, and I'm going to be on my own facing all of them unless I find another caravan to travel with to Kansas City. It's scary, like fighting the warg was, but it's exciting too, and I won. It was hard, but I did. Here's my advice, Herbert says when I'm looking ahead and our campfire is closer. You don't have to have sex if you aren't ready. You tell anyone who asks no, and if they push, you put them in their place, hard. I don't think Daz will let me, I grumbled. You might be surprised. Then he continues. But the flip side to that is that if you come across a guy, the guy or girl you want to try something with, don't let don't let what what you think sex is about keep you from trying it. Out here on the road, a lot of the rules of the settlements go away. So you get to do things you might not think you'll be allowed there. And before you think I mean it just about sex, it applies to everything. The wild doesn't follow the same rules as the settlements. So you need to keep that in mind with every encounter. People aren't the same out here as they are in cities. I nod, and before I work out what to make of what he said, we reach the others, and Max takes me aside for archery practice. Okay, this needs to be altered. Because my co-scriptor pointed out that learning to shoot and quick knocking are not an either or situation. You can train both. So So how am I altering this? Because the question here is valid, and Max is an experienced archer, so the answer that he gives here doesn't make sense. Um, so actually, okay, so is the question even, okay, all right, okay, let me decide for archery practice. Let me quiver. Out. So that takes care of the, and that, okay, so the change that it makes changes a lot. And actually, actually, that could play into this. Like this. Oh, right. And that takes me back here. Okay, let's see how this reads. Da, da, da. Okay, I nod, and before I work out what to make of what he said, we reach the others, and Max takes me aside for archery practice. Okay. That's too long. He hands me a quiver to attach to my belt, then spends time showing me how to take arrows out quickly without them getting stuck. It takes a few tries before I have an arrow out without others spilling, then more to complete the motion, putting the arrow to the string. Finally, I go from arrow into the quiver to the bow and shoot at the tree Max pointed to as the target. I miss, and the arrow vanishes among the trees. Normally, I'd have you go find it, but there's going to be things out there that might consider you food. I could use the practice. I could use the practice, I say. Putting my fingers to the fletching of another arrow. Max snort. It's not practice if your life is in danger. It's combat, and maybe you could take on whatever would go after you, but it wouldn't look good if we'd let you die so close to town. George calls out that food is ready. Okay, I need to establish. He nods. And I. He nods, and I quickly pull the arrow and drop it. George calls out that food is ready after I shoot just under a tree in arrows. Only one missed the tree. Max lets me keep the quiver and 10 arrows, helping me at. Okay, I don't. That's been done. So I don't need that. I don't really need to know, you know, where it is in relation to the sword. Food is a thick stew I have trouble believing was cooked over a fire. The meat's tender. The vegetables have just enough of a bite to them. Don't turn mushy in my mouth, and it's spiced better than anything I've managed yet. I'm resting against the log we were using as a bench while we ate, enjoying the post-meal lethargy when I spot movement among the trees. The shadows are long enough, I wouldn't expect to notice anything there. Then I realize it's kind of big and white. Really big. Monster! I yell, hurrying to my feet, bow in hand and knocking an arrow. Easy there, Herbert says, pushing my arms down as the monster steps out from between the trees. That's just silver. I stare at him. That's not just anything. It's got to reach my chest at the shoulder. It's massive with a long, thin muzzle. Chucks must be doing the rounds, Ellen says. What does that? I point. Have to do with Chuck. There's something of a set, Daz answers. I've never heard of him having a pet, I reply. Silver's not a pet, Judge says with a warning tone, and I'd be careful calling him that when he's close enough to hear. Might get away with it, Daz says, being new and all. Doesn't that depend on if Silver's fed already? Sasha asks, and I look at them in disbelief. Are they seriously not worried? We're about to find out, Church says and nods. I look and stare into an open maw lined with sharp teeth. With a yell, I scramble back until someone stops me. While roasting yourself is a good way to keep Silver from snacking on you, Herbert says, I personally don't recommend it. And it looks like he ate already, Evelyn says, and she has a surprisingly deep voice. The thing is sitting, closing its maw and looking at us, head canted and pointed ears straight up. Go ahead, Herbert urges. He's just curious about the new smells you bring. I'm not getting close to that. Someone's scared, Daz says in a mocking tone. No shit, I reply. I take a step. It takes a step, and I try to back away, but Herbert has a hand on my back, and I feel the heat of the fire. Right, that direction isn't a good idea. When I look at it again, its muzzle is close to my neck, and I stupidly close my eyes and crane my head to get that out of the way. The nose is cold against my skin, and it sniffles. I crack an eye open, and it's looking at me, bright blue eyes, inquisitive. You're going to want to do something before my shirt and your back catches on fire. Like what? I demand, voice strident. Pushing him away could help, Daz says. Help me get eaten, I reply. Daz reaches forward and shoves the large animal. It doesn't budge, only turns its head and yaws at him. Yeah, you aren't moving unless you want to. I know, Daz tells it. How about you give the new kid space? You're scaring him. His name is Dennis, by the way. It looks at me again, then steps back. It did what you said? I'm talented that way, the man replies smugly. Silver understands us and then says, and he's nice, if a bit pushy. He's not going to mind if you touch him. The Silver sits and looks at me again. I guess that if it didn't bite Daz's hand off for trying to shove him, I should be fine, right? Its fur is surprisingly soft and thick. I step forward and sink both hands into the fur. Wow, I whisper. And Silver makes another friend, Dad says. I swear he has more of those than I do. Maybe if you'd stop trying to sleep with all the guys you come across, Evelyn says, you'd manage to make some. But guys are so yummy. How am I supposed to resist them? With that thing called willpower, she snaps. But I need it for more important things. What are you? I whisper and realize I never got a system message out of it. I don't even get a query response to my question. I focus on it and nothing. Making more friends, I see. Someone says, and I hear your way hands up as if that absolved me of touching it. It snorts, then looks over its shoulder at Chuck. It yawns before walking to him and sitting at his side. He was just getting a sniff of Dennis, Herbert says. Didn't find him to his taste, George adds. So I guess we have to keep dealing with him. What is it? He, Chuck replies harshly. Silver's not a thing. He. Sorry, I hurried to say. What is he? I'm not getting the usual system message when I look at an animal. Maybe that's because he's not an animal, Chuck replies, his tone no friendlier. Silver bumps his head against Chuck's side and he looks at him. Hey, you might not mind, but it pisses me off. I take note of the fact that not one person around the fire comments and keep my mouth shut. Anyway, Chuck says, tone softening. How are things? Good, Herbert answers. Saw a few of the spiders at the edge of the forest, but they kept away. Dennis fought one, Max said. Did okay. Max killed it, I add, not wanting Chuck to think I'm taking credit for someone else's work. I was overconfident and just rushed it. It got in a few hits, but I did too. Then Max shot it. You're going to want to work on that always explaining thing, kids. Kid, Chuck says. Glad you're okay. He adds in a tone that leaves me uncertain if he means it. Then he heads for another group of wagon, Silver at his side. Does he really mean Silver is a person? I ask when they're out of sight. The system changes a lot of things. Changed a lot of things. Before it, only humans lived here. Then it changed a lot of them into other species. Humans tend to be the largest group around here. I don't know if we even have a dozen non-human in court, but I've never heard of someone being four-legged. No idea, Max said, and I know better than to ask Chuck about it. And he hears it. Him? Maybe, Sasha says, then shrug. It's not like any one of us is going to question him about it. She smiles at me. Will you? I look in the direction they went and shiver at the tone he snapped at me with. No, I'd like to keep on living. Smart kid, Dad says. Now, show me how smart you are and sit next to me. He pats the log. I sit opposite him. Wow, Evelyn said. He's even smarter than that. And this concludes chapter 25 of The World Which Is. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to read the story, it is up on Royal Road for free. If you want to support me and read slightly ahead, that is on my Patreon. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the note, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.